Your champion just went silent. That 100K deal that you forecasted probably a couple of times in the last month is officially dead. And it wasn't killed by the group you were talking to. It was put to pasture by someone in a completely different group that you never even knew. So today, I'm going to talk to you about how AI can help you to map the true power dynamics in any organization before your deal gets derailed. How many of you out there have got an email or a call? It's like, hey, sorry, this thing happened. And you're like, wait, I can talk to that person, etc. Well, the problem is too many sellers right now, and just in general, have always been too focused on the hierarchy. The reality is every deal, my friends, has a powerarchy. And both of them are important to know. And especially if you've been following along with the pod, we've done episodes about, mapping the hierarchy, etc. But in today's episode, number 13, I am going to talk about how to utilize AI to never lose a deal to internal bureaucracy or politics ever again. I can't, like, as we were putting this episode together, I feel like this is like the missing piece. I see there's so many tools out there today. They're like, well, did Johnny follow Medic or Medpic? And it's like, oh my gosh, look at Johnny followed Medpic. But guess what Medpic and these other tools, guess what they don't listen for? They can't comprehend the concept of power dynamics, right? And today's day and age, there are so many people involved in deals. My gosh. I've seen 11 in like a small company, at least 11 people involved. So in today's day and age, we have to try to map this and to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. And so throughout today's episode, and make sure you kind of tune in through the end. If you are listening right now, we're going to have a great visual on YouTube. You all know this, though. I do a pretty good job of walking through what we're going to cover. So if you're just listening, amazing. Thank you for tuning in. If you are watching right now, make sure to subscribe to the channel, as I'm going to jump into how to make sure you never lose a deal to internal politics again. And I'm talking internal at the prospects company. Ooh, actually, that's not a bad idea. We could actually do an internal politics one, where how to make sure you can get approvals from all the different groups for the stuff that you want to pull as a seller. Maybe that'll be a future episode. But like I said, I think today's episode is just going to be another one of those copy and pasters, where the team has built out one of the most insane prompts that I have seen in terms of like breadth and depth. And we're also going to be converting this into a custom GPT as well too. So if you're somebody who already subscribes to our custom GPTs, those are continuing to get better. So we're coming up with a name. I think it's going to be like, political analyzer, prospect internal politics analyzer, something like that. But it should be a lot of fun. So make sure to stay tuned, and I'm going to walk you through the exact prompt that is going to make sure you never lose that big deal again to internal stakeholders. So let's jump into this, okay? Let's talk about why traditional stakeholder mapping fails. And I'll tell you, there's a couple of reasons. Over time, and I'm sure all of you can attest to this, over the last, I've been in B2B sales for like 20 years. So, sir, I'm just going to say over the last 20 years because that's my experience. It used to be, I kid you not, I'm going back, I was a sales rep at a company in the job space. This is probably 2006, 2007. I could get a CEO or VP of HR on the phone, and I could close, I kid you not, like on the second call, I could close on the call like a 15 to 30K deal sometimes. And, it was really this idea that people used to make a lot more decisions on their own up high. People didn't used to consult 55 people. And so why the traditional stakeholder mapping is failing is that there are so many people now that have influence. So many executives, so many people are scared to make decisions today. So what they do is they get in a room with a bunch of people and they look around, they say, well, what do you think? What do you think? And they're like hoping to God that there's consensus here. And then you can have this one person who's like 2 levels below the economic buyer or champion or the decision maker. And they're like, look, I just don't think this is going to work. We tried to implement this tool before, blah, blah, blah. It didn't work. I think this is going to be the same. And then that person is the loudest voice and your deal gets shot down. Okay. And what I think AI is uniquely amazing at is it can kind of map out the like, hey, this is actually how things work at a company based on a product that you might sell. You need to make sure that you talk to these people as well too. And I think, look, sometimes in sales we are taught, less meetings is better. What can we do digitally? And look, and as you know me, I'm all about providing digital experiences for people. But I also need to make sure I'm providing digital experiences differently to different types of stakeholders. And so politically, to pacify this person, I need to talk to them about this. And to pacify this person, I need to talk to them about this, right? And when you combine in your call transcripts, you combine in email copy, you combine all those things together, plus a seller's, experience, we've got some really cool signals that we can try to map to that will actually help you to reveal kind of true organizational power dynamics. And so here in about 10 minutes, I'm going to walk you through, the prompt, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how to make sure that these things, you don't lose a deal again because of this. And what I want you to think about is, look, your champion isn't your champion. And the decision maker that you've been pitching to is not your decision maker. My friends, every deal in today's day and age has multiple people and multiple champions that might be peers. They have multiple people within the inner circle that can say yes or no. And so just looking at an org chart is a 100% recipe for losing more deals. You need to make sure if you're talking to the end user team, you have at least 1 or 2 people you talk to regularly. If you are talking to the ROI or the business team, if you wonder what I'm talking about, this is our framework called intent. Hopefully you follow along on Innovative Seller. If you don't, check it out on YouTube. But intent talks about this concept of teams. So you've got your end user team and you've got your buying or ROI team. And so you need to make sure in today's day and age, you have multiple relationships. You cannot be single threaded. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. So what can we do to try to mitigate some of this? Okay. And I'm going to go through kind of 3 or 4 key areas here. Yeah. The first is I'm going to talk about the concept of a champion. And I have said some relatively controversial things about the whole idea of a champion over the years. I love champions. I want to be very clear. I've had many, many deals where I had a champion who literally did the work for me. And it was awesome. It made my life way easier. But look, as salespeople, we can't rely on having only champions to close deals. We have to be our biggest champion. And the big issue that I see with a lot of, upper SMB, mid-market, enterprise sellers is they look at the process through the lens that the champion tells them is the process. Guys, most of the people you're dealing with are probably mid-level on the end user team. That's kind of usually where that champion bucket comes from. They're not used to buying things. They're not used to collaborating. They might buy one thing a year, one thing every few years. And so they're telling you what they think the process is, but they don't really know, right? And they really only interact or know their own kind of peer group. They don't interact with this other department or this other sub-department within their department that much. And they don't really know Jill in finance or whoever, right? And so because we don't understand the actual decision-making process, because again, we're taking one person's opinion, we lose deals, right? That stakeholder map of this goes to this and then this goes to this, it just falls apart. So now, my friends, let's enter the world of AI. Have a little coffee. Okay, so let's talk about what AI can do. First, email communication. It's interesting. I see a lot of focus around the call. I want you all to understand that most of these companies are not able actually to judge true sentiment. What these companies are actually doing on the call is looking at words and they're bunching words together. And they're saying these words are typically positive, these words are typically negative. It's very much AI and machine learning, not generative AI. What on the email side, what these tools can do is quickly help you to see the unsaid things. You know, this was a shorter reply. Jake, you had 6 replies here. They were all short. At no point did they loop anybody in. All of those types of nuances. Okay. The other thing that I really like about AI is, and whenever we go through the prompt here in a second, is it also will say, hey, who hasn't been involved that you should probably think about talking to? And I really love that application, you know, the ability to say, here's who, here's kind of who I've been talking to, like, what am I missing, et cetera. I think that's a big one as a part of it. And I think, too, what the other thing it can do is pick up maybe on some subtleties between, you know, maybe internal groups disagreeing, you know, maybe a subtlety that was mentioned by this department that's really important. And so, as you know, in terms of mapping the political dynamics, when I put together the proposal, I want to make sure that I, have those nuances in my proposal. So then this person who could, shoot the deal down is happy. So all those things go really into it. And so how do we actually implement this? Okay. This prompt that I'm about to, if you're watching on YouTube, we're getting ready to fire it up. If you're listening along, thank you again. As usual, if you're enjoying what you hear so far, make sure it does a lot. If you guys take a couple of seconds to subscribe on your favorite either podcast or your favorite medium that you're listening, or obviously if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, please always helps. Give it a like, share it with your network as well. We always appreciate those things. Subscribe to the channel. You know the things to do. So we're going to get into the implementation. So what generative AI is able to do better than any technology we've ever possessed is really synthesizing and taking in a whole bunch of unstructured data and making very smart correlations between things, or at least maybe not correlations or causations, but inferences toward things might be a better way to think about it. It can also, over time, it already will start to learn your map, right? So for those of you, if you're using ChatGPT, I'm going to show you the example in ChatGPT today. ChatGPT memory is a really great thing. This is more of a pro tip, I'll tell you. Look, ChatGPT memory messes up a lot, and you need to prune it at least once a month. So the quick way that you can do that, pro tip, is just ask ChatGPT what it knows about you. Just, hey, ChatGPT, what have you been storing about me? And let's do a quick cleanse session that I can get rid of anything that's noise. So you need to run that little memory, I'll call it a memory cleanse, about every month, at least, as a part of that. So again, like over time, it's going to start to understand the typical people that need to be involved, et cetera. And it can really create this kind of deal risk assessment, right? Based on political factors, knowing the nuances of, hey, CIOs typically care about this thing. You better watch out, Johnny, because you're going to be in trouble as a part of this. So, my friends, are you ready? Okay. It is time in the show where we are going to get into the AI details of how is AI going to actually help you with this. And I think this, we do a lot of these episodes, and I think everyone has value. This one, I think, is one that I really hope every enterprise seller and mid-market sellers like, heck yeah, I'm going to use this thing like crazy as a part of this. So let's jump into it here. All right, so here we are, my friends. So we have, this is ChatGPT 03. For those of you who know, I'm a pretty big ChatGPT 03, and especially with deep research. I did not turn on deep research for this one, but I'm going to walk you through the prompt right now. I took out, and if y'all remember from the episode last week or the week before maybe, I take out sometimes some of the things that would, expose calls that I've had, but in the actual link that we will provide, you will get the full prompt that prompts you to upload a call transcript, upload a few emails, etc. For those of you, the next question, I'm sure a lot of you, but Jake, is this okay? Is this allowed? Look, a really easy thing you can do is say, hey, replace the company name, replace the person's name. Scenarios are scenarios. We're really just looking for the scenario here. It's not really company specific. Also, if you didn't know this, if you have a ChatGPT Teams account or an enterprise account, no information is shared back with the model. And I think even the paid Premier account, it's the same. I'll have to have the team do some check on the show notes with that. So here's what we've got, okay? I want you to analyze, so here's the prompt. I want you to analyze all available data to map the internal politics and decision-making dynamics, okay? Act as an expert in as an expert organizational psychologist, specializing in B2B buying committees with deep knowledge of corporate power structures. Right here, guys, this is where, so for those of you listening along, there's a little blank spot. This is where the prompt that you will see if you go to the show notes on the podcast, or if you go to the link in the YouTube comments, you'll see kind of the additional details, which are like, upload the transcript, emails, additional context. All I said here is I have a deal that I'm worried the IT team will block us. We met with the VP of digital strategy and they are in, but not sure who else should be looped in. I work at a company, I use this company Yoda, in selling to a mid-market IT brand. This is a fake. I also said this is a fake scenario, so don't commit it to memory as a part of this. I said, okay, now let's get weird, all right? Stakeholder power map. Identify all known stakeholders, right? So it's going to say, okay, for a company like this, who do they sell to? Who's probably involved? Assess their likely influence level. Detect informal power dynamics not visible in org charts. Map reporting relationships. Identify missing stakeholders. Flag potential blockers or ghost stakeholders. Guys, I mean, this is better than, look, as someone who's managed hundreds, if not thousands of sales reps, God, it would take me to give a breakdown like this to a rep like an hour, maybe even more, and we'd have to go back and forth. The next thing I said is let's analyze their decision process. So not just who is the stakeholder power map, what's the decision process, right? What's the actual versus stated decision making, right? We talked about that. Hey, the champion keeps saying this, but hey, what are they maybe missing? Identify approval gates, map the flow of information, highlight organizational constraints impacting it, and note previous purchasing patterns if available. So again, this goes back to what did I say? The reason that a lot of people might lose deals is they believe the one process, okay? They believe a process they're told from somebody who's just not used to buying things, right? Next up, we ask it to do a stakeholder motivation assessment. We say, analyze individual priorities, identify potential conflicts. This is where your call recordings can really be helpful. This is a really good one. Detect career considerations affecting the decision, right? If you're selling a project, it's a few $1,000,000, or even if it's less than that, a smaller company, someone's going to have to put their neck on the line for you. Uh-oh. Well, what if I'm like kind of bought in, but not all the way bought in? That's a real thing. Coalition analysis, right? What are the natural alliances amongst stakeholders? Political risk assessment, flag deals, signs of political complexity. Again, your call scripts will help with that. Communication network analysis, map how the information flows, identify gaps, etc. Okay, and then we tell it really clearly how we want the data to lay out. Okay, and now guys, watch what happens. Okay, so again, I'm work at this company. I've been working with digital. I'm worried IT, just to summarize again, IT is going to be a blocker. I need to make sure as I'm working this deal, these guys this doesn't happen. So the first thing we ask it for, it's thought for a whopping 15 seconds. If I would have turned on deep research, it might have been even a little bigger. Executive summary, what are the 5 fast truths? The IT architecture board equals the ultimate gatekeeper. Even when budget sits in digital strategy, nothing ships without an architecture security sign-off. Your VP champion controls vision, not the keys. Shadow CIO dynamic. Mid-market tech brands often have a long-tenured director manager who quietly dictates stack standards and kills non-fit. Ooh, okay. Security performance. Site performance ROI resonates, but cyber risk avoidance is a non-negotiable, right? Yoda solves for site performance. This calls out, hey, don't just focus on that. Focus on something else too. Procurement, I love it. It even said will flex late. It says procurement will flex late. Finance is under cost containment orders. They push anything infrastructure adjacent through the RFP light. If you're not multi-threaded, when they enter, price will become a dominant narrative. Digital revenue KPI equals leverage point. E-com lead gen owners need faster pages yesterday. They carry revenue targets and that can outrank IT in the ELT if mobilized into coalition. So here it starts to map the stakeholder influence map. Check this out, guys. It goes through all these different job titles in IT. It says, what's their formal role? What's their actual influence? This actual influence one is filthy. It's like, okay, the CFO controller, low to medium influence, but there's budget oversight. Medium to high, right there, they have the CIO. Oh man, I love what it called out here. It says high, a kingmaker is the senior director of enterprise architecture, the shadow CIO, and InfoSec, the CISO. So again, if you're a seller, I cannot tell you how many sellers are like, yeah, IT is involved. It's like, no. Who is involved in IT? What are the roles? Who needs to be involved as a part of this? So again, I want you all to just think about that as a construct of what it's going to help you to do. Is like, you know what, man? We have never talked to security or enterprise ops. Man, these people are going to have some influence. It's like, hey, you haven't talked to these people. Okay, right? Your contact is credible, but politically they're mid-tier. They're mid. I should be like, it's mid as a part of that. Decision process reality. Okay, boom. Informal. There's going to be an informal architectural review, a security view, and a procurement funnel. How are you prepared for that? Okay, so think about those types of things, what that might actually looks like. Stakeholder motivation map. Risk tolerance, low. Alignment, neutral. Will follow board advice. CISO, job preservation via zero incidents. What are their personal? So one of the columns here is called personal drivers. And it says, what is a personal driver for CISO? Job preservation. Minimize attack risk, right? The risk tolerance is very low, right? Architecture, influence, create technical purity. I love that call out, etc. So here's your political strategy recommendation. Your optimal influence path is this. The VP of digital strategy, loop in the director of digital experience, the revenue owner, jointly brief architecture lead before the security review, and position the CIO as executive sponsor, not evaluator. Package a revenue uplift plus zero risk architecture narrative if you want to win this deal. Risk mitigation, pilot in a controlled segment. It offers that idea. Other people to multi-thread. And then last, but certainly not least, it gives you tactical next steps. It says, here's some questions that you might want to ask, okay? At the architecture lead. Which reference architectures or cloud governance standards must any performance tool align with? Love that. Revenue impact, co-host a revenue impact workshop for digital experience and VP. Make them feel better about the ROI you can generate. Send the CISO a one-pager mapping Yoda to OWASP and ISO 27001 controls. I do not know what that means. What additional penetration evidence would you need for an approval pilot? Then, number 4, verify threshold for is there a competitive bid? Try to loop in procurement early, quietly, it even says. It's so dope. And last but not least, secure exec level check-in with CIO after technical alignment. Guys, I literally gave this thing a prompt. I told it absolutely nothing about the nuances of this deal. I didn't upload the call transcripts. I didn't upload all the emails. But I think you can really clearly see this is a freaking game changer. Like, this to me is just one of those prompts where it's like, you need to be doing this in every deal, right? It talks about warning signs. If your architecture lead postpones the call, hidden objection. Security team requests a generic questionnaire only. Procurement suddenly escalates to RFP. Digital experience disengages, right? And this is crazy. The key insight, it says the key insight. This deal is won or lost in architecture and security. Treat them as co-buyers, not compliance steps, and arm your champion with revenue evidence strong enough to outweigh IT's risk bias. My friends, it really does not get any better than that. Again, me as a senior tenured sales leader, this is the type of stuff where I would, again, I'd have to spend hours studying to even think through all these scenarios. And now here we are, and literally I have a bulletproof political landscape map. Guys, you got to be running this for every single deal. And our team, we're going to turn this into a custom GPT for sure. Political deal analyzer that you can just upload and it will do it for you. But in the meantime, borrow the prompt as always. So that is this week's episode number 13 of the AI-powered seller. I really feel that this is one of those episodes that you're going to win some deals on this year. If you copy and paste what we just put together, if you go into every deal understanding how to use AI to map politics, you're going to win deals. You're going to win a lot of deals. And so make sure, hopefully this is helpful for all of you out there. I know there's some good insights in there. So as usual, make sure to follow along. You can follow along on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn, very, very active as well, too, if you're following there. Make sure to subscribe to the channel or follow on YouTube or LinkedIn, or like the video if you're on TikTok or IG Reels. And definitely, if you're liking the podcast, please, we love reviews. If you don't mind leaving a review, that would be amazing as well. And so that's what I got, everyone. Episode 13, AI-powered seller. Make sure, my friends, you are avoiding those political landmines, and you're going to close a lot more deals.